Okay, let's take a look at using the first derivative test with the TI-Nspire in order to find the maxes and mins and also the intervals where f of x is increasing and decreasing. So we have this function here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead over to my calculator and I'm going to enter it in so I can store it as f of x. So we got x to the fifth minus 5x divided by 5. And I need to hit Control VAR so I can store this as f of x. So I hit enter, and now I have that stored. Next, I need to take the derivative so I can actually do the first derivative test. So I go to Calculus, Derivative, and now I have my derivative. Okay. Now I'm going to save this as g of x because the calculator doesn't understand f prime of x. So it's just easier to save it as g of x, and I hit enter. Okay, now I need to find the maxes and mins, and in order to find those x values, I need to set the derivative equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to Menu, Algebra, Solve, and since I have this stored of g of x, notice it's in bold, we're going to set that equal to 0, and then we want to solve, remember, in terms of x. So I hit enter, and I have two x values. So what I like to do here is I like to set up a number line, and that's going to help me organize my information to figure out where it's increasing and decreasing. Because remember, if I just test values before and after -1 and then 1, I can figure out using the derivative whether it's increasing or decreasing. So if I input a value and it's positive, it means f of x is increasing, and if I input a value into the derivative and it's negative, it means it's decreasing. So this is super easy with the calculator, right? I have this stored as g of x, so I can just input -2 over here, and then I'll know for this whole area whether it's increasing or decreasing. So, oops, I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say g of -2, and it gives me a positive number. And I'll go ahead and do the rest here while I'm doing it. In between -1 and 1 is 0, so I get negative. Okay, so it's going to be increasing, then decreasing, and then I'll input 2, and I get a positive number again. I actually get the same number. So, so that means we can draw some arrows here to kind of help us understand this. So it's increasing, then it's decreasing, and then it's increasing again. Notice if you draw the arrows like this, a little better than mine, but if you draw the arrows like this, you can get a shape for the graph. So I already know that -1 is a max, but I don't know the y value yet, so I want to go ahead and figure that out. Now for that, I need to use my original function. So I'm going to go back over to my calculator, and I'm going to say f of -1, because I need the y value of the original point on the original function. So that gives me -1, 4/5. So I'll record that, and that's my max, and I know that because think about the shape of the graph. It's going up, and then it goes down, so that's going to be a maximum. And if you only have two maxes and mins, well, the other one has to be a minimum. But let's just make sure, and we'll input that point of +1. So here I'm going to have a minimum, but let's see what we get in our calculator when we input f of 1. So we get -4/5, so that's obviously a minimum. So put that in, we get -4/5, so now we have our maxes and mins, and the only part left is to state the intervals of increasing and decreasing. So we're going to say f of x is increasing. You can just write INC in my mind, that's fine. And that's from -infinity, because it goes all the way to -infinity to -1, and again from 1 to infinity. So that's my increasing, and then it's decreasing on -1 to 1. Okay, so notice decreasing on -1 to 1, that fills in the gap where it's not increasing. And now you're done with this first problem. You have your intervals and your maxes and mins with their y values.